Welcome to this week's Institute for Digital Assets and Innovation. I'm your host, David Beck. I'm the Director for Systems Architecture and Engineering at IDIA. I'm here with a prestigious host, someone I've known for quite a few years, who has a great aperture of space and also is a founder many times over himself, Mr. Ali. I'll let him introduce himself.
Well, thank you, Mr. Beck. It's a pleasure being on here with you, David. And, knowing your work, I'm very humbled by that pleasant introduction. My name's Zaheer Ali. I'm a physicist by training. I'm still recovering. I worked in the Department of Energy on nuclear weapons, non-proliferation, counterterrorism, and a few other things for over a decade before I moved over to NASA, where I worked on primarily astronomy and astrophysics, SOFIA, and other infrared missions, as well as having some significant purview over things like the code that went to Astro B, planet discovery, aviation, data sciences, airborne autonomy, and a variety of other orbital and suborbital projects and programs that NASA ran. I've also been in the Fortune 50 at a couple major, large corporate players in the computer and AI industries, as well as having founded a couple startups and still advising a dozen. Currently, I am professor and program director at University of Central Florida, where I lead the Space MBA, the first fully accredited business degree for the space economy in the world. Urge you to find out how you can become a space knight if you're so interested.
Yes, we appreciate you, sir. I think we all aspire to be space nuts. Could you tell me about some of the things that you've worked on in your career, how important space is to you in building our supply chain areas of space for technology?
People seem to think that the space economy is a new thing, but it's not. It's changing, and it's changing a lot, but it is not new. I have been in love with space and the science of space since I was a boy. You walk outside at night, you look up, and you see the moon and stars. And so it's the most human thing in the world to wonder what they are, why they're there, what are they doing, do they have any effect or influence on us, etc. Fast forward to 2002, and we're going after bad people who do bad things. And one of the primary ways we understand how to find them, go find them, and send the angels to speed them to their mercy, that all happened directly because of space. It is a foundational technology for both the commerce of our nation and the world and for the defense of a democracy in our nation and the world. Nothing happens anymore without space. So it'd almost be easier if we had a list of what doesn't happen because of space, David. But it's really fundamentally, So I'll stop there and toss it back to you because I know you have some interesting ideas around this.
Well, I think you really hit the nail on the head with that in terms of blasting off into orbit with so how important supply chain is. I think a lot of people on this planet today do not understand what they have in their hands today because of what efforts have been achieved in space during research and development. So
that's right.
I think from that standpoint, one of the questions I really want to ask is how do we sustain our orbital understanding of building technology and supplying that technology with good students, because what the work you do every day and teaching and educating and mentoring not just companies and startups, but also ecosystems of an innovation.
Well, you're absolutely right, sir. One of our friends and fellow veteran from the defense world, General Lee Levy, has always told me, Z, it takes me 24 years to create an engineer, not just 4 in university, 24. from the time that kid is born, keeping them interested, making sure they get the right care and feeding that they need, both to their body and their mind and their soul, all of that, right? So we talk a lot about the material supply chain, and we've done a lot in the last decade of bluing that supply chain, nearshoring, onshoring, uh, deepening our capabilities to provide provenance, and training not just people domestically, but around the world, and how to manufacture within the lines that maintain security and create that supply chain. We saw during COVID how brittle supply chain had become due to over optimization for different types of outcomes, not necessarily the mission outcome. So we're having to rethink that. How do we create resilient, secure supply chains? And that work is ongoing. But on the people side, there's a lot to do as well, because what you have is you have a couple generations of people who have not been as interested in the deep work that is the aerospace supply chain. It's not just software. You can't just go to a boot camp and figure out how to, create an avionics module. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. You might be able to go to a boot camp for 6 weeks, learn how to code, and then go write code to be used for, I don't know, pizza delivery apps. Fine, that's cool. That doesn't work in this industry. So the supply chain has to be nurtured, has to get the care and feeding from the government, from industry, from academia, which is one of the reasons we're very proud at UCF to be the number one supplier to the nation of aerospace talent. It founded in 1962 to support the Apollo program. The School of Engineering was the first school built. The second school was the College of Business. And that, I think, is one of the reasons, like, David, you and I have been talking about this since your time with the Space Force and all the fostering you have done of the innovation ecosystem, and how important that is that the commercial, the academic, and the government all work in tandem to make sure this is a strong base for the nation and for democracy, the aerospace base in the U.S.
I think you hit on some really good points here. One of the points I want to really want to expand on is the U.S. based education system for space in general. Not just understanding what space is all about, but the ecosystem of getting involved in building startup companies, building resiliency factor, mission objectives, but also building a sustainable resiliency for space so that it can weather any financial situation that may occur, like things that are happening in the world today, but it can sustain itself because it's built on some fortification groundwork that's been embedded because of people like you and I and others who have been really building up it for so long. So any areas of that you want to touch on, please bring it up because you have a varied audience here. You have a lot of young kids who be checking this podcast out, and I want to make sure they get all the in-depth knowledge that you have to provide, sir.
Well, given thinking of a broad audience, one of the great things that's emerging about the space economy is that, David, when you and I were growing up, right, to be in space, physics, some sort of engineering, chemistry, maybe biology and medicine on the human side, right? Um, so many fields that for so many people feel inaccessible for a variety of reasons. I'm not good at math. Maybe you just didn't have a good math teacher. So much of that depends on your training, right? I don't, science is too hard for me. Again, so much of this where we're losing people from STEM. But the beauty of commercialization of any industry is that it pulls in all talents. And when I think about space, of course, I believe in my heart and my soul that the U.S. and the free nations of the world need to win the space domain from a national security and defense perspective, because our way of life must be projected out as humanity expands out. But hand in hand with that idea is that our art must also be projected out. Our fashion, our music, the things that make us human must go with us. Otherwise, will we be human? What are we going to be? How are we going to live? We know that people need food, they need community, they need psychological support. So now is a great time for all of that to come in. One of the fun things is I literally have open on my desktop on my computer right now, the International Journal of Hospitality and Management has a call for proposals for space hospitality papers out there. Now, I'm very proud that over a third of the special editors are from UCF, because we have the Rosen College of Hospitality. It's a world leader in space tourism and hospitality as a study. But the reason I bring this up is to just help people understand, okay, you don't feel great about your math, you'll get through it. That's cool. You can still be part of the space economy. You can be part of it as an English major. You can be part of it as an interior designer. You can be part of it, from the perspective of fashion, where I have multiple former students of mine who are coming into space because they are going to build spacesuits that people can actually walk around in and take a jog and do something, not just these kind of very old, very limiting spacesuits. And when you think about the overall structure, and then you asked me a question about a system. How do we think about training people? We have to train people at every level to have awareness of space, whether they're grade schoolers, middle high schoolers, you know, secondary, post secondary, continuing education, in adult lives, right? Because this is now a frontier that we will be expanding into indefinitely. We fight wars. We have conflict on Earth because of resources, some of them very fundamental, right? Combustibles, wood, coal, oil, right? Energy. We're going to fight wars, if we're not careful, over platinum and molybdenum and cobalt and other critical minerals. But literally out there in the universe is an effective infinite amount of energy and an effective infinite amount of resources, if we have the guts and the brains to go get them. And so this changes the game. So how can we all be part of that? That's the message I would like people to understand, is that we're building a supply chain. Initially, it's based in defense, like so many frontiers in technology, right? It's interesting, but it's up and down until it becomes relevant to defense. That is now, and the fact that the Joint Chiefs now completely view space as a warfighting domain. We have our own branch, right? The Space Force, General Raymond, now General Saltzman. That creates an overlay of stability to funding. That says the nation is saying we will never let our capabilities fall below a certain threshold, not in absolute, but in reference to our adversary, which means we keep pushing because it's a constant competition. This is great because it means that you have continued capabilities to fund and support training, deployment, etc., giving all the other stuff time to develop. So this is a super exciting time to be alive. I think people will look back at this time as they did the first 100 years after Columbus found, well, he didn't really find it. People were here. He ran into America, right? But the next 100 years defined a trajectory. I think you could say 2015, when SpaceX got that famous Air Force contract, count
Absolutely.
100 years from then. Count 100 years from then, and it'll feel like the first 100 years after Columbus sailed the ocean blue. And that's what I want people to be prepared for. That's what I want them to think about. How can you be part of that?
Yeah, I think the most important piece of it is not that you're technically inclined, that you have I would quote from from a movie, a unique set of skills that can
That's
bring to
right.
space. Is that you bring in what you have and who you are to space, because we need artists, we need painters, we need geologists, we need everybody that's here on Earth to be in space to do the ecosystem and to build the ecosystem. So from that point of view, you think from my space centric area, we have enough academic institutions on board to teach their students about the novelties and innovations that occur in space, or do you think there's more needed?
I think we have the greatest educational system in the world. I really do. There's a reason the entire world comes to America, particularly in higher ed. And what's really amazing about our system is that a person in our system can reinvent themselves half a dozen times during a lifetime. You know, you can have training here, then you can choose to go do something else, and there are constant opportunities out of you know college debt is not good, but overall you have a chance. Depending on what level. So I don't think we necessarily need more institutions, but I think we need the institutions we have to quickly become adaptable and innovate. And I don't mean some ranking like, oh, I'm number one in innovation, not nonsense,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm saying really be able to change, right? We implemented the Space MBA in 3 months. That's the type of agility that education institutions need, right? Over at my undergraduate alma mater, Cal, you have New Space Berkeley, which is they're going to revamp what Ames Research Center is and has been, and it desperately needs it, right?
Yeah, they're raising money
You
now to
have
build out the innovation center over there as well.
exactly. You have UNT, which is working on supply chain security certificates. So you have pockets coming up around the country where people are saying, "Hey, we need to change." And so I think there needs to be more of that, more recognition that you may be a mechanical engineer, but it's probably good if you take a design and an AI course as well. Maybe not to make you an expert in everything, but so that at least you can have an intelligent conversation with your colleagues who have those expertise. So there needs to be a focus, and not just lip service, but actually driving trans and interdisciplinary education so that a physicist has enough business acumen to close a business case, or that an English major understands and is aware enough of electrical engineering that she can help write the standard operating procedures that take it from an astronaut having to do a task to somebody who's not an astronaut but is more of a space labor force person, right?
Right.
You
You
can't
want to be
have
an
you
engineer,
can't
then
have to have a test pilot to do everything up there, right?
exactly. So
So I think
so
there's adjustment needed, and
yes, it is.
adaptation and evolution.
Yes, it is. Yeah, and I think to your point, we need to look outside the box with building careers. We also need to look at sustainability in areas in which we have not focused on for educating. That's very much needed. One of the things that came up in a meeting we had here um, recently with Southern California and building the infrastructure for spaces. We need those welders. We need those TIG schedulers. We need the material handlers. We need all the different skill sets to build a system to go in orbit. And you also needed to maintain that. I think it's a huge workforce task. I think the universities are working on it, but I think there needs more collaboration between the universities and the states to work together and build an ecosystem as
Yes.
well.
We saw this. I remember seeing this as early as the early 2000s, when I was in the DOE, and we realized we couldn't get machinists who could get a clearance quickly enough.
Right.
Welders. Welders have always been a problem, because welders always have a job. So you need to incentivize them. So the Department of Energy actually funded 200 junior colleges around the country with programs where if the students would get a scholarship to go get qualified as a master, or as a journeyman welder. They had to do years to get the master qualification and other trades, and they were guaranteed a job at a national lab or other FFRDC. Salary, everything. So literally, you show up as a 17-year-old who was drinking beer off the tailgate of a pickup the night before. You show up, you do your stuff, you pass your exams, you get a clearance, and you get a job 26 months later. and you didn't pay
Right.
for school. That ain't a bad deal, right? So we need 10 times. We didn't, we were serving our purpose. We need to take that from 200 to 2,000. And we're worried about jobs, right? We know software. You can just see my article in the EE Times recently about how software is going to eat software engineering jobs.
Yeah.
This is normal. This is the way technology works, right? It used to be that a tailor kind of had the same level of prestige as a doctor in terms of a tradesperson and a professional. But as that was able to be automated, the demand for clothes has gone nowhere but up.
Right.
But the way we think about that has changed. What are the high paying jobs in clothes and fashion now? They're not in putting them together. And so, what's interesting though is with hardware, you never get away from certain things until we have full AGI, full dexterous type things. There are just going to be things that humans need to do. So there's a huge
Right.
opportunity to realign training and workforce to match the growing need of space, to pick up the declining need of other jobs that are going to be replaced by automation.
So
So,
so to add
so
to
there's a
that,
massive economic development thing here and job
right.
saving thing here for the future.
Right. To add to that, we're getting close to the end. To add to that, give me three, your top three things we need to focus on from your perspective for incorporating a better resiliency in space that would give us a lead. Not a lot of people think we have a lead around the world. The U.S. does, but yeah, it's everything's on shaky ground these days because technology is faster than us speaking on this podcast today. So give us three caveats from your playbook, what you think it'd be, and then we'll close up and go from there. Thank you.
Yeah, we need to keep, we need to aggressively fund trade and skilled trades nationally. We can't wait. And this should be a completely bipartisan, no nonsense issue. This is something the DOW, the DOE, and maybe a couple other major bodies in the government can just say, look, we're all just going to come together. We're going to take 1%, maybe 0.5% of our budget each, and just throw it at this problem, and you solve it in one generation right away. Because there are a lot of young men and women who are sitting there saying, look, I thought I was going to go be a coder. I don't know what to do with my life now.
Right.
There's good talent on the street. We need to train it and direct it. Number two, we need to aggressively fund the government being an anchor to a lot of portions of the technology with an eye, with like a 5 to 10 year plan to back away. Commercial LEO destination is a big one. A bunch of the communications is another one. But to me, the holy grail right now, if we get this economy turning, it's 50 years of growth, is the ISAM economy. In space, assembly, manufacturing, right? We have right. It turns out we have the ability to reprint human cornea. Nobody has to be blind ever again, basically,
Exactly.
or 90% of blindness cured, right? With this product, there's a bunch of stuff we can do up there we can't do on Earth. So we have to get those commercial cases closed. The government needs to be there just long enough for the business engine to turn into a self-sustaining cycle. Number three, we have to prioritize, and this is a bit sharp, but I'm just going to say it. We have to prioritize graduate technical education for those who can obtain clearances.
Yes. We need more of those.
For too long, we have. When I was in graduate departments, even 20 plus years ago, in the technical field, it was it was a majority of people who could never get a clearance.
Right.
That is very useful to industry, bolster the workforce, etc. But at the same time, given the reality of space and where we're going now, we have to make sure Americans have the skill to defend America. And that starts in our universities. It starts in our grade schools.
Can you say that one more time? The last part?
We have to make sure Americans have the skills to defend America. It
Yes.
starts in our universities, it starts in our high schools, it starts in our grade schools.
Also, thank you so much for that. I appreciate it because I'm a past member of ISM community, um, and deeply working with our future
You're
capabilities
pioneering,
office
David.
at the DoD, and also worked a lot in these areas you talked about. Still do. So we got a lot of young people watching this podcast, so very enthusiastic about what you said today and how important education is a tipping stone for everything. Could you tell them how to reach out to you, your Twitter, your LinkedIn, all these things that can reach out to you, and we close
Oh,
up?
oh yeah, yeah. But you please feel free to post my university email. I'm very happy to give a few minutes to any parent who wants to know how to direct their child's education and career. I'm not a huge. I'm primarily on LinkedIn. Zaali is my handle. Zaali. It's pretty easy. But definitely check out UCF. The last thing is, I'll just say, for any kid interested, find the local telescope or astronomy society. These are a bunch of geeks who will open you with welcome arms, train you, and let you play with some really cool hardware. So I just think to any kid, whether interested, whether you have money, you don't have to. The library is your friend, right? These societies are your friend. We, as a scientific community, want you. We need you, and we are here and ready to help you. So please find us, and I'm happy to help direct traffic as much as possible.
You heard it from him. One of the most prestigious guys in education and academia I know these days, Mr. Ali. Please look at www.university of Central Florida.edu, and I'm sure he look forward to having him teach you in the class. Um, as usual, I'm your host, David Beck. Please like, click, follow, and subscribe to Supplying Space, brought to you by the Institute for Digital Assets Innovation. And we'll see you next time. Thank you, everybody.